My name is Chelsea Parker. I've been married for 3 years and have lived with my in-laws from the start. There's no such thing as a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law feud in my in-laws' home. My mother-in-law is kind and treats me like her own daughter. However, conversely, the distance between my husband, Kevin, and me has grown, and recently he has been coming home less frequently. Seeing this, my mother-in-law apologized, feeling sorry for me. But it's not her fault. I'm really sorry. It's been 3 years since you got married and that boy. It's not your fault. But I must have raised him wrong. That's not true at all. I'm actually envious of how a kind parent like you raised him. Besides, I've given up on Kevin and I'm not expecting anything from him anymore. If you only heard these words, you might think what a cold wife I am. But there are feelings between my mother-in-law and me that only we can understand. That's right. I think that's best. My son has made my wonderful daughter-in-law feel sad. Relying on such a fool won't help at all. He's the child she bore and raised. It can't be what she really feels. These words must be an attempt to understand my feelings. My mother-in-law and I care for each other, and our relationship has deepened thanks to my foolish husband. Then, one day, a huge amount of luggage was delivered to our house. What? What's all this luggage? As I was shocked, Kevin's face emerged from among the luggage. From today, I'll be living here with my mistress and our secret child. What? What do you mean? That means my mistress and our child will live here too. Basically, you're not needed anymore. Not needed? What are you saying, Kevin? Mom, just keep quiet. It's already decided. Here, take this divorce paper and leave. And make sure to file it as soon as possible. I'm gonna remarry Mary. Mary? Yeah, my mistress. Mom, it's your grandchild. His name is Rick. He's 4 years old, so please take care of him. 4 years old? Stunned, I just stared at the young child. My mother-in-law sighed deeply. Is this the ending to our marriage that my husband decided? My husband and his mistress seemed happy as they moved their belongings into the house. As I watched the two of them, I wondered why I had ever married such a person, reminiscing about the past. After graduating from high school, I chose the path of working from home instead of getting a job. I preferred doing what I love over interacting with people and experiencing stress. However, this meant I had no opportunities to meet anyone, and as everyone around me got married, I was left behind. Every time I met my uncles and aunts, they would ask, "When are you gonna get married?" And I got tired of hearing it over and over. So, I attended a matchmaking party held in town. That's where I met Kevin. Kevin's condition for marriage was a kind woman who would be okay with living with his parents. He wanted a homemaker who was family-oriented. But he complained that no woman these days would accept such conditions. I'm not a homemaker, but I hardly ever leave the house, and since my parents passed away early, I was happy about the idea of living with his parents. Kevin was a kind man, and I could tell he cared deeply for his parents. I thought I could build a happy family with him. So, I agreed to marry him. And so, things progressed smoothly, and we ended up having a small wedding ceremony. Soon after getting married, I started living at my in-laws' house, but his father wasn't there. Apparently, he had passed away early, and Kevin had been raised by his mother alone since he was in elementary school. I thought I'd be alone in my old age, but to have you live with me, I'm truly thankful and happy. She said as she took my hand when we started living together. From that day on, she treasured me as her daughter-in-law. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. I'll try not to be in the way since you're newlyweds, but if there's anything you dislike, please tell me honestly. She was always so considerate that I felt sorry for her. 3 years have passed, but we still haven't been blessed with children. My husband said to me, "You can't even give her a grandchild, you're really a failure as a wife. Other wives get pregnant right after marriage, I never thought it would be this difficult for you. This marriage was a mistake." Saying so, my husband started to berate me. It is indeed painful for me not to be able to give my mother-in-law a grandchild. If I could, I would want to have a grandchild for her right away. But it seems fate is not on my side, as every month ends in disappointment. My husband, who doesn't understand my sadness at all, only throws more hurtful words at me. Because of this, my heart has grown colder. I may indeed have made a mistake with this marriage. Although I think so, I have no complaints about my mother-in-law. That's why, no matter what my husband said, I've endured it for her sake. However, my husband gradually stopped coming home, and when he did, he would change clothes and leave right away. With no communication, there was no chance of having children. Yet, my mother-in-law remained ever kind. Children are gifts from heaven. It's not your fault, Chelsea. You shouldn't worry about it. An angel will surely come to you soon. What? Isn't it because your body is too old? If it's useless, then you don't need it. How could he say something like that? I couldn't even cry anymore. Then came his declaration of having a mistress. On top of that, he mentioned having a child and shoved the divorce papers at me. Although I thought it was the worst, I muttered to myself, well, I knew it, but this is just too much. As I was thinking about this, Kevin added insult to injury. Hey, when are you gonna leave? Get out of here now. His harsh words snapped me back to reality, and I responded. I've already moved into a high-rise condo, you know? What are you talking about? You're right here. You don't remember anything, do you? We were divorced a month ago. Huh? Haven't you come back once in the last month? Or did you come back and not notice that my stuff was gone? Kevin looked at me bewildered. But what I was saying was true. What do you mean? I didn't sign any divorce papers. How could the divorce have been finalized? Remember coming back very drunk a month ago? Kevin thought hard and then quietly said, "Ah." It seems he remembered. That time, you confessed about having a mistress and a child. Though I didn't know about the 4-year-old. You told me everything then. Everything? Mary has been your girlfriend since before our marriage, right? But you wanted to marry her even though she already had a husband. And the child wasn't her husband's but yours. All this while, her husband believed it was his and cared for the child, but you would sometimes meet up and treat him as your own. I said all that? If I hadn't heard it from you, I wouldn't know, would I? Well, that's true. Eventually, on the day you all met, the child told her husband that he had met another daddy and had a great time. Thanks to that, she ended up divorcing, but it was lucky for you since you wanted to marry her. She almost lost the child during the divorce, but she revealed the child was yours and not her husband's, so she didn't lose him. But her husband was furious. Exactly. Such a petty man. That's when, happy about being able to marry her, your mother said, if that's the case, it's better for you to divorce Chelsea. I was surprised but agreed with your mother and consented to the divorce. You were so happy about me agreeing to divorce, you wanted to shout for joy. I see. So that happened. I completely forgot. That's right. So you signed the divorce papers then and there, and I filed them the next day. I see. But then why are you still here? If we're divorced, it's strange for you to be here, isn't it? You haven't been coming back, Kevin. Even though our divorce was finalized and I moved out of the house, I heard from your mom that you hardly ever come back. I thought she might be feeling lonely, so I've been coming here during the day to work. At night, I go back to my own place. That's why I didn't know whether you were coming back at night or not. Your mom didn't want to worry me, so she didn't say anything. I see. And so, we've been strangers for over a month now. Finally got it, huh? But, man, I really don't remember anything. How can you be such a person? Coming back home after a long while only to be drunk, and then you start talking about having a mistress. Don't you ever think about how hard this has been on Chelsea? There's nothing I can do about it if I don't remember. Chelsea is just calmly talking about it, but any other woman would have made a big deal out of it. You could have been a bit more tactful. And you too, Mary. I don't mind you remarrying, But you shouldn't expect happiness after stealing someone's husband. What you did is unforgivable. Mom, she's the one who's gonna live with you, so don't say things like that. Otherwise, you'd end up living alone, wouldn't you? That would be lonely and awful, right? How can you say that? You were always hanging around some woman and not coming home. Didn't you think that was lonely? Chelsea was there, so it was fine. How stupid can you be? Anyway, the divorce is a done deal, right? So there's no point in bringing it up again now. It's not over at all. You coming back now has brought everything back up. Plus, having a 4-year-old kid. Wasn't this going on even before you were married? Well, yeah. And it continued even after you got married. How much more can you disrespect someone? Yes, after all this. Say whatever you want. How long will you be able to behave like that? Indeed, Kevin has a specialized job that pays well. Thanks to that, we never had any financial difficulties. So even with the divorce, I had no worries about separating, but Kevin didn't know that. It's fine. I feel sorry for you, but when I realized what kind of person he was, any lingering feelings I had were completely gone. I'm truly sorry. His mother apologized. After that, I lived alone in a high-rise condo, enjoying a peaceful life. The view from the upper floors was beautiful, and I continued to work from home as usual, but it felt peaceful. However, during such times, Kevin contacted me again. Have you seen Mom? She's missing, Kevin said, sounding either anxious or worried despite claiming to be searching for her. What do you mean missing? She hasn't come back for several days. You've waited several days to start looking for her? I thought she might have gone to a friend's place. Plus, it's hard to tell if she's around or not, so I wasn't really worried. How could this be? He didn't notice his own mother was missing? But now, it's becoming a problem. A problem? Yeah, without Mom, the house is a mess. She isn't here to clean up. What? I don't understand. Well, I did get remarried, but Mary doesn't do anything around the house. Thanks to that, it's just filled with trash. She doesn't clean, dishes and candy wrappers are left everywhere, and so are our clothes. It's a sad sight. I understand it's a terrible situation, but how can he still be laughing about it? What kind of nerves does he have? That sounds just like you, Kevin. Yeah, that's why I'm in trouble without Mom. I don't get it. Why doesn't your wife do anything? Well, her previous husband did everything himself and hated it when Mary moved anything. He liked to clean and organize things his way, and if Mary tidied up, he couldn't find anything and would get upset. After years of that, Mary just stopped doing anything at all. That sounds like a convenient excuse. Even if she had a husband like that, she should start doing things herself once he was gone. It seems more likely that she was always the type not to do anything. And Kevin, being similar, never saw it as a problem until the situation became dire. It must have become such a disastrous situation that he thought, this is terrible, I have to do something about it. And suddenly, he remembers his mother. And now she's telling me to do it. I told her I couldn't, but she said I could because her previous husband did, insisting it's not impossible because I'm a man too. But I never did anything when I was with you, and before we got married, Mom did everything, so really, I can't. It's not that he can't, he just doesn't want to. When we were together, his mother always kept things tidy, and she would help me clean, but Kevin never did any cleaning himself. Sometimes I wondered if Kevin could even put on his own socks. I even thought that at times. Well, that wasn't actually the case. So why exactly is it a problem if your mom isn't around? I'd understand if you were worried about her, but I can't grasp why you're troubled just because she's not here to clean. Well, when I suggested we live with my parents, I told her my mom would take care of everything since she was around. But she didn't like the idea because she said eventually Mom would get old and we'd have to take care of her. I said we could just put her in a nursing home then. She agreed to move in if she could think of Mom as a housemaid. How awful. He had been planning to use his mother as a substitute housemaid from the beginning. Because of this, Mom's not here and looking at the state of things. Mary started complaining that it's not like she has a maid at home. She says she wouldn't have divorced if she knew it was going to be like this. But it's not like we had a choice, considering the affair was out in the open. What awful people. Your mother is not some maid. Of course, she's not a maid. If she were, we'd have to pay her, but all we have to do is feed Mom. It's much better than a maid, he replied. What? That's not the point. Maybe I exaggerated a bit. I just wish she would act more like a housewife. That's all. Don't take it seriously. It's the same thing. You're expecting an elderly woman to work forever. There's a limit to being ridiculous. Do you know where Mom might be, anyway? Since you got along with her, maybe she told you something? That's ridiculous. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. I shouted, and then I hung up the phone. Looking to my side, there was my mother-in-law. I thought it would be something like this, she said with a smile. Actually, when Kevin signed the divorce papers a month ago, I really didn't care much about the divorce. I had more than enough income on my own, and I had been living practically without a husband, so I didn't feel. My mother-in-law hadn't realized I was doing so well financially. Thinking of me as a valuable daughter-in-law who married her foolish son, she had been saving from her meager income for emergencies. She offered that money to help me rent a condo. But that led us to decide that we should really teach Kevin a lesson. After discussing what kind of punishment would be suitable, we decided that if my husband ever came back home, my mother-in-law would leave the house. And she would live with me instead. We thought that since Kevin couldn't do anything by himself, his new wife would get fed up. But it turned out she couldn't do anything either. Well, they'll just have to live in the mess then. They won't die buried in trash. That was the first part of the punishment. Of course, we didn't plan to end it there. We have another punishment properly prepared. A few weeks later, Kevin contacted us again, as expected. Hey, I got hit with a demand for alimony. There's nothing to be surprised about. But why? You know how I got danged mentally because of you. You definitely owe alimony. And it's gonna be $60,000? I discussed this with a lawyer. Man, fine, I'll figure something out. But what's this about sending money to my mother? That's coming to her too? Oh, I've heard from your mother since then. I don't know where she is now, but she said she doesn't have any money and can't afford to live. But since I'm a stranger, there's nothing I can do, right? So I suggested that her son should send her some money. She always says her son is stingy, so I thought, why not send a letter addressed to his wife? It's a good idea, isn't it? A great idea! I mean, she said she'd starve to death without money. All I can do is suggest. Considering your income, you could send about $2,000, right? Alimony on top of sending money home is tough. I'll have to borrow to pay the alimony. That's not my problem. It's the consequence of your actions. Can you just not demand alimony? What are you talking about? That makes no sense. Please! That's none of my business. You destroyed someone else's life. What do you want me to do? I don't care. Please, don't get mad. Think about it, man. I owe $60,000. I'd have to get into debt to pay that. And if my mom starts needing money too, I can't repay the debts. You get that, right? Plus, I have a kid to raise. Everyone's got the same problems. You live in a high-rise, you must have a decent income, right? I wonder why you have so much money, but if you do, you surely don't need alimony. You're being foolish. Take responsibility for your own actions. I divorced you. Kevin, knowing I wouldn't withdraw the demand for alimony, hung up the phone disappointedly. I thought I would let it go if he didn't call anymore, but he's just too selfish. So, I decided it was time for my last resort. A few days later, social media was buzzing with a certain topic. Is it fact or fiction? Many people speculated as they tried to uncover the truth. Knowing this would happen, I smirked while looking at my phone. Then the phone rang. It was my ex-husband, Kevin.
Hello? What should I do?
In a fluster, Kevin couldn't hide his anxiety as he said this. What happened? I knew why he was upset without asking. But I wanted to know exactly how my trap was tormenting him.
Aren't you looking at the internet?
I am checking it now. There's nothing major happening.
It's not in the news.
Oh, if it's not the news, then what is it?
Somehow, the stuff about me and Mary has leaked online.
Really? That can't be. Who would know such personal details? Oh, I might know.
Who knows about it?
At least you and I, Mary, her ex-husband, and your mother.
Who would leak such a thing online?
I don't think anyone would. What happened exactly? Then he sent me a URL. Opening it, there was indeed a sensational story about Kevin and Mary's affair. However, everything is anonymized, leaving no certainty to the details. Moreover, it's written in a very sensational and humorous way, making it hard to tell what is true.
This is about me and Mary, right?
Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But it's not the end of the world just because it's written, right?
It is a big deal. It doesn't mention the company by name, but someone's digging, and from our relationship, they're guessing who we are. They've traced it back to the company and even figured out where we live.
That's some skilled detective work. The story just mentions that Mary was married to her ex-husband while having an affair with Kevin, bearing his child, and betraying her ex. It's written in a way that's bound to spread and has sparked curiosity about who it could be. Certainly, for doing such things, it's natural to be criticized as being unreasonable or inhumane.
The company's name got out, and it's hurting our business. The company figured it out, and now they know it's me.
I figured.
People at work are furious. Because of this, I got fired. Why does this have to be written? Who wrote it? It wasn't you, was it?
Kevin's voice was fearful, but it wasn't me. However, I do have a friend who's an influencer. I had talked to her about Kevin's cheating. I knew this would happen if I talked about it. She excels in gossip and has a knack for finding juicy stories to write about, often creating a media frenzy with her articles. I didn't write it. I'm not that talented. But I did talk to a friend about it. Your actions were so appalling that I needed advice. Maybe she decided to write about it.
What have you done?
Well, no real names are used, and it wouldn't be clear unless someone dug deep. That shows you how scary the internet can be.
It's not just scary. I've been fired. It's almost like I got fired because of you. What are you gonna do about this? Now I have no income.
You've reaped what you sowed, haven't you? I just talked to a friend, and she wasn't trying to expose anything. The internet detectives who found out aren't her fault. If anyone's to blame, it's you, for cheating on your wife for 3 years, and Mary, for having an affair and a child with you while deceiving her husband. Don't blame others for your own faults.
That's true, but now Mary and I are always fighting. She blames me for everything.
Well, you're both to blame.
In the end, she left just a divorce paper and walked out. Now she's also demanding child support. What should I do?
Oh, collateral damage.
I have no job, the amount demanded is huge, I'm in debt, and it's the worst. Plus, my mother is nowhere to be found. Can you help me?
I smiled when we parted, but I've always thought since then.
What?
You deserve to go to hell.
That's harsh.
Kevin kept calling, trying at least to find his mother so they could live together. When I asked why, it turned out he still wanted her to do the housework and live with him so he wouldn't have to send her money. Given his endlessly scheming nature, I have not disclosed the whereabouts of his mother. Kevin now sends money monthly to his mother, pays child support to Mary, and struggles to repay the debts he incurred for me. He complained that the amount was substantial, and had he not been fired, he might have managed somehow. But no amount of grumbling changes things. Although he found a new job, he's struggling with the unfamiliar work. The job alone isn't enough to cover his expenses, so he works extra shifts at night and on weekends. To cut costs, he moved into a notoriously haunted place because the rent for a single person seemed wasteful, but the place is so creepy that he can hardly bring himself to go home. He only visits during the day to change clothes. Considering how much he's wasting on the rent, he thought about renting a storage unit instead. However, with no fixed address, he would struggle to find a decent job, so he reluctantly continues to live in the haunted house. Thanks to this, he still sends money to his mother every month. As for me, I'm living in a high-rise condo with my mother-in-law. Our life together is very comfortable. I'm busy with work, but she takes care of the household chores. We cook dinner together and enjoy our time. It feels like I'm living with my real mother, and I feel the greatest happiness.